Trisha's just signing on.
Okay, we'll give her a sec. Okay. Gang's all here. It being 5:30, I'll call to order the select board meeting of September 9th. We have a full complement board on this evening. We have some appointments later on. Let's start with the acceptance of the minutes. Those were sent around earlier, probably later last. Have you both had a chance to review them and make any changes to Terry if need be?
Everything looked
Yes.
good.
Head nod. Yeah. If so, we'll have a motion to accept as prepared.
So moved.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes of the August 26th select board meeting. In favor, Andrew
Hi.
and Tricia.
Aye.
Thank you very much. It passes unanimously. The liaison reports. We've got almost 14 minutes or so before the first appointment. So who would like to start this evening? Last time, Trish, Andrew, you all set?
I'm sorry, did you want me to go first or second?
First, if you would.
Okay. Well, Jeff Johnston, I believe, is coming to the meeting. Is that right, Terry?
He's going to try to make it. He was working with Mass DOT late this afternoon and wasn't sure he'd be able to sign on.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll talk about the old Greenfield project when we get to the knotweed segment. So I don't have more on the highway. We'll also talk about the solar project when we get to that piece of the agenda. So that's pretty much my highway update. I have spoken with Lori yesterday from the Arms Library, just trying to move us forward on the fundraising or funding project for the lift in the library, and looking at applying to the Office of Disability grant program for that. So we will keep trying to move in that direction. And I'm interested in seeing if we can bundle that together with an application for a stage lift in the Memorial Hall Theater, since that's a handicap accessibility project we will need to do there as we make improvements to the hall. Those are both potentially fundable by the Office of Disabilities program. So we need to put together an application for that. And then the Pocket Park is coming up in a couple of places already, so we can talk about that when we get there. And then the two other projects that I sort of check in on but don't formally liaise about. One is just to give a thumbs up to our Energy Committee and Streetlight Committee for the $75,000 Green Communities grant. That's going to make that streetlight conversion very affordable, and really improve the economics of that tremendously. So kudos to John and Jeff and everybody who worked on that. And then you may have seen, Tricia and Rick, that we have submitted and been approved for the match for the Memorial Hall Theater's Cultural Facilities Grant. So I've been working to help move that project forward toward developing bid specifications to complete the second phase of that project, which is repairing the floor, the tin ceiling, and replacing the seats. And once we get a meeting together with FERCog and their new procurement chief, Laura Phelps, with our architect, Joe Matty, we will bring forward a bid proposal for you all to review, but we don't quite have all that together yet at this meeting. So, but hopefully that will be coming soon so that we can get that out to bid sometime this fall. I think that's all I've got. So I turn it over to you, Tricia.
Actually, first, Andrew, I think there's one more thing under Highway Department we should at least mention this evening, which, I mean, the things going on fast and furious today has my head spinning anyway.
Oh, the Bardwell Bridge, yes. Actually, it's not Bardwell Ferry Bridge, but there's another bridge off of Bardwell Ferry that was closed today. Terry, do you have more on that?
I've just been told that it's near 80 Bardwell Ferry Road.
Yeah, it's just south of South Shelburne Road and the intersection. It's Dragon Brook comes down from above, goes under the road there. So it's very close to that four-way intersection. I forget the name of the road that goes up over, but it's just south of South.
I have the map if you want to look at it. I have it labeled on this map, if I can share the screen.
I don't know that it will give anybody any more of a
It's
definition.
it's South Shelburne and Bardwell's Ferry Road, that intersection. There's
Yeah, that's good information.
Yep.
Terry, while we're on the subject of bridge closings, is there any further information from Mass DOT about the Bardwell Ferry Bridge project in terms of what that timeline is looking like?
No, nothing.
We don't have anything yet. Okay, I know I got an email from Fritz Bohr asking about it, and I didn't have any information to give him, so I thought I'd ask.
No, Conway is the lead town and they have not provided any updates.
Okay.
Right. Okay, Tricia, we've got a few minutes before our first appointment. Would you like to start your report?
Sure. So from Town Hall, of course, there was the election on Tuesday. And that went pretty well. I know there was a little issue with the server getting switched right before the election, and actually it wouldn't have mattered if it was before the election or not. There was some problems with I'm guessing it was the memory space on the computers. Is that right, Terry? So that now your computer and Joe's had to be replaced.
Yes,
So, and that was an unexpected event, but everything's up and running now, right?
that's correct.
And then from emergency management, Tom Williams conducted a 2.5-hour training session with the Emergency Operations Center team at the new EOC location. There were 6 people there, and that was all, but he's going to be talking to us later today about the comprehensive emergency management plan, which hopefully you've all had an opportunity to read.
Okay.
So that's, and then I think I saw something come through about the senior center right before I had to leave to go pick up my child, and I just arrived from that. So if Terry, I think you received it as well. Would you mind sharing that with everyone, please?
I did forward it to each board member
Okay,
this afternoon.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that.
It was a nice update on all aspects of the senior center, updating, and I don't recall anything in it that would be beneficial to mention in this meeting for those who may be watching it now or later. So thank you for that. My quarterly meetings of the 3 regional boards on which I serve have not been established yet. Sometime this month, the Joint Town Buckland and Shelburne Police Services Advisory Committee as I mentioned at our last meeting, was supposed to meet in August, and has yet to be scheduled, so I have nothing from that. The police department wage study RFP that we approved has been finalized and was sent out to several vendors. And we'll have a little more interesting information on this later on in our new business this evening. So I'll leave it at that. Terry, did you have anything on any other subjects, town hall, that you wish to share?
Not at this time, thank you. I did want to mention that Bob Dean sent out a doodle poll maybe today for the Police Advisory Committee. So that meeting is pending at some point soon.
Right. He sent it out actually last week. I think only 4 of us, I believe, had replied as of this morning when I checked it. And there is one date that all 4 people could go. And I think that's a quorum, but I'm not sure. So
Okay.
hopefully we'll get to that real soon. We're 4 minutes away from our properly advertised public hearing. I won't start that early. Let's see, quick ARPA fund update. We jump down to that, item B and number 5. You have that under old business.
I think Andrew's muted.
And Andrew. you-
I
There you
I
are.
was just gonna say that part of my homework on the ARPA money question was to try to get some cost estimates on the pocket park landscaping and the repair of the pothole overlook deck. And I put in calls about that, but did not get responses. So I don't have cost estimates to share at this meeting, but I think we still have some time before we have to make a full decision on that. We have till the end of the year to commit the money, right, Terry?
That's correct.
So I will keep after that and see if I can get you some numbers by next meeting.
Terrific. Item C, number 5, old business transfer station operations. There is nothing new to report on that. When the agenda was prepared, is that still the case, Terry?
That is the case. The vendor is still trying to obtain pricing for me.
Okay, terrific.
Are you talking about the question of printing plastic bags or things like that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Which is what we had asked her to gather.
Yeah. I mean, one suggestion, since we're on that subject, is maybe to do that part first, since that seems like the most best way to improve the efficiency of the operation in terms of taking that burden off of the operator and not having to have them manage cash and all that. I think that's a kind of a no-brainer if we can get the stickers or the bags to work and find a store willing to sell them. The other part of the equation, the having people purchase stickers, is a little less of a no-brainer to me. I think it needs more thought and discussion. And I did float it by our transfer station attendant, and he mentioned several potential problems that arise with the sticker thing. One being that if people have more than one car, they need more than one sticker, or and he mentioned another scenario in which people come to him and say, well, I live in Buckland, but I'm taking my father's trash from Shelburne to the station. So, he gets a lot of stories, I guess, is what I'm saying. And we need to kind of think that through before we go down the window decal route,
No question, a sticky wicket, and we're just trying to make things better, and we got to start somewhere. So I think we made a good decision at our last meeting to pursue it in that manner. Okay, it's 5:45, perfect timing, Mr. Baker. 5:45, I call to open the public hearing as advertised properly and posted. Public hearing for an entertainment license request. It's brief, I'll read it. The Shelburne Select Board will consider an entertainment license request on behalf of Le Peacock at 10 Bridge Street, Shelburne, Mass. This evening at 5:45 via Zoom. The request is for an annual entertainment license to allow live acoustical music between the hours of 9 to 11 weekdays and 9 to midnight on Saturdays, Sundays excluded. We'll open the public hearing. Anyone wish to make a comment? Michelangelo, you are here. Would you like to give us a little overview of your plans?
Oh, just to have, a little bit of a jazz situation down in the Peacock, or just an acoustic, single solo individual playing music.
Okay, I did notice further, I think, on the application itself, did it reference an amplifier?
No amplifier, just acoustic.
That's what the
I believe it said non-amplified.
Yep, acoustic, non-amplified.
yep. Great. Yeah, I thought somewhere else I saw it. Oh, wait a minute, it does say here. Your manager sent this in and he said, the music would be acoustic, minimal, if any, amplification.
Well, I believe if there was any amplification, it would be like a pig amp, just a tiny, small amp for, acoustic guitar.
Okay, great.
Rick,
Sure.
I would just offer my own experience that I have frequented the space under previous owners when they had music down there, and it was very pleasant. It's a small space, it's underground, so the ability of the sound to travel anywhere else is pretty limited, and I thought it sounded very nice in there.
Tricia, any comment?
No, thank you.
Is anyone else from the public on board who would like to speak to this entertainment license application? Hearing none, seeing none? Let me know if I'm missing someone. We can close this public hearing and consider the issue. So we have a motion to close the public hearing, please.
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh,
Or
go
sec-
ahead, Andrew. You got it.
Second. Did I move or second? I
We'll
do
take-
one of those.
A second. Been moved and second to close the public hearing. Tricia,
I.
Andrew,
Hi.
and I am I. It passes unanimously. The public hearing is closed. Time to make a decision. Any further comments, Andrew or Tricia?
I'd move that we grant the license.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded to grant the application of Le Peacock for an annual entertainment license. Andrew moved, your vote, sir,
Aye.
and Tricia,
I.
and I am an aye. The request for an entertainment license is approved unanimously.
Thank you and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You
You too.
too.
Bye.
Okay, we have school committee up this evening at 6, so we have 10 minutes. I think we could probably deal with the solar array installation, item D on old business number 5, in that amount of time. The process has been crazy. We received initially a set of paperwork from Eversource, who had rejected our applications. and they wanted 10,335 more to upgrade the uh, transformer, claiming that the distance from the transformer and the size of the array was too big and they needed to upgrade it. Terry, town administrator, and I met with Matt from the vendor. We reviewed it. We didn't understand it. Turns out there's a brand new transformer 40 feet from the building. And so he put a request in for more information because they had kicked it out of the review process. And he explained that there is a new transformer, the distance, et cetera, and asked for a better explanation. They said, okay, they put it back into consideration, and I think it was later that same day, we got approval. So finally, that fear of another 10,300 in this project went away the same day it came in, which let me sleep that evening anyway. So we've got that behind us. The panels were delivered today and to the barn where they'll be installed. And the next thing, according to Matt from the solar company, is that now that they have a approval to install the system from Eversource, we've moved on to our municipal electrical and building permit applications. He said he thinks they can begin construction sometime in early October once that permitting process approvals happen. That's all the update that I have on that pole barn situation, solar project. Any comments, Andrew or Terry, Tricia?
Congratulations on getting the problem solved in record time.
I wish we did anything other than meet with them and say, this is nuts, why? So apparently one hand didn't see what the other was doing on Eversource's end, and when they finally caught up, did the right thing. So that's
Great.
good deal.
Glad it's moving ahead.
Yeah, it would be great to have that thing up and running come early November, perhaps. Terry, did I miss anything on that factor?
No, PV Squared said that they would be getting in touch with me soon about the tax rebates and other incentives, so we'll schedule that call when time allows.
Terrific. Okay, we've got 7 minutes before our next appointment. Let's drop to number 6. Item A, fiscal year 25 Community Compact Program regarding the wage and classification study for the police. I had mentioned in my liaison report that this would be coming up, and our incredible town admin found something, and I'd like to let her share that information.
Well, the town meeting had appropriated $10,000 specific to a wage and classification study for our police department. And when the Healy Driscoll administration released the information on the FY25 Community Compact Program, one of the best practices that we can apply for is a wage and classification study. So with the board's permission, I would like to apply for that on the off chance that we receive grant funding, and then we wouldn't need to use what the town had appropriated. So I just need your authorization to proceed with that grant application.
There was a sheet on that in your packet. I assume you both have reviewed that.
Yeah.
I have to look at it again because I looked at it a couple days ago, but the timing for a response on that grant, do you know?
They didn't even open until August 19th.
Yeah, it's on a rolling basis for best practices. And then the IT grant program opens January 6th, where I'd like to apply for a cybersecurity assessment.
Yep.
And that was
Can we move to authorize Terry to apply for both of those community compact grants now?
I see no reason to split them.
then I will move them both.
I'll second.
It has been moved in second to authorize Terry to proceed with the Best Practices Program grant and the IT grant program for cybersecurity assessment. It's been moved and seconded. Andrew,
Aye.
Tricia,
Aye.
I am aye. The motion passes unanimously on both
Thank you.
stations. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.
Okay, new business, item 6B. We have a request for use of the Pocket Park with regard to Moonlight Magic event.
I did review Missy's note about that. And is she here at the meeting tonight?
She is not.
Okay. I guess it sounded like she was saying, yes, we will put decorations on the building and we won't use any tacks or nails. So I'm good with that. And she wants to leave them up until January, which I'm okay with. The one question I had is it sounded like she wanted to put a Christmas tree in front of the pavilion, and I wasn't quite sure where she was going to put that or how big it was or how it was going to be secured so it didn't fall over. Do you know any of that, Terry?
I don't, but in the past, the tree has been somewhere toward the middle of the lot and secured with wires and weights. So I'm assuming they would do the same.
Okay. And since I don't think we're going to get any landscaping done before that time period, I'm okay if they put the tree up in the grassy area behind the pavilion, as long as it comes down before we do any landscaping. So
And
that's
I will ask them to secure the tree in a manner that doesn't create a trip hazard for anyone
Yeah.
using the park.
yeah.
Okay,
So I'm okay with the proposal if that's the way that it's going forward.
Tricia, did you have any concerns?
The only concern I have is regarding the decorations and if they're going to be representative of one faith as opposed to any other, and if or if it's going to be more of a generic wintertime type of decoration, because I think it would be we would really need to think about if we're going to just support a single type of religious event. I understand we're having the tree, but I think if the decorations are going to be staying up for as long as they are, we need to consider offending or being not inclusive to other people who also have holidays during that time of year.
I had the
Right.
same concern that the tree might be considered secular. And they named it the community tree. I'm reading her request, and it says they would like to put up the community tree in front of the pavilion and decorate the pavilion itself. They want to do it before Moonlight Magic, and that's just after Thanksgiving, right?
Yes.
Then leave it up until the middle of January. I think that's a bit much. I think we should bounce this back to them. I don't see any urgency in making a decision on this evening, to come up with some more clear details after she's been advised that we're not a fan of it being, the tree being in front of the pavilion, and give us a narrower window of time for it to be up, I would think would be prudent. I don't see the need to have a community tree there until the middle of January myself.
Rick?
Yes, sir.
If I may, just to address the religious question, my understanding is that the decorations would be just lights. So I'm not sure that those convey any religious signification. If there are crosses or stars of David or crescent moons or Wiccan symbols, we probably would have a different discussion. But to me, trees and lights do not trigger the religious injunction question.
Well,
And
they also said garland, so I don't know if, if it's blue or
a
if
garland
it's,
is just another form of evergreen that's, that's green material, it doesn't have a religious significance in my mind, but so that's just my position on it. But I think if we're kicking it to another meeting, we can ask Missy to be more specific about the kinds of things they want to put up.
yeah, that I'd be fine with that. And I meant, so I've had flower garlands. There are different types of garlands. It's not just evergreen. So if it specifies it's going to be evergreen garland and white lights, I'm good to go. But sometimes garlands have things dangling off of them and all other sorts of things. And that's all. I just want to make sure that we're including everyone, and people aren't going to feel like they can't use the park or can't participate because they're not welcome.
Okay, Terry, if you would do that for us, respond to her with
Absolutely.
look for a shorter time period for it to be up after the holidays, and we'll pick it up at our future meeting after she responds with some more details.
Rick? The only other comment I would add about the timeline is that we have in the past received requests to bless lighting up on Massamet Mountain in the winter, and the time period that is sort of suggested for those lights up there is roughly the same as what's being proposed here. So you might want to go back and look at that and decide on what you think, you're comfortable with as a winter lighting scheme. But my sense is that that's roughly the time period that they keep up the garland lightings that get strung on the street lamps. I don't know exactly what window of time is contemplated for that, but it's roughly the same period. It's basically trying to give the town a little bit of twinkle in the dark time of the year. And so if they stay up through January, I don't have an objection to that.
Okay. I hear you. I'm good with that as well. It being 6:02, we'll get on to our next appointment, which is Willow and Jason.
Yep, I'm here.
I see you. Great. The floor is yours.
Well, thanks for having us. I just wanted to kind of start with a quick little history. I've been on school committee since 2016. There's been a lot of other members in the other seats, so I'm really happy to have Willow back as an experienced school committee person, and try to get some stability to things. And one thing that always tended to lack was connection with Selectboard. Because I was I've often and am now the chair of the budget subcommittee, I would tend to meet with finance committee, and the other member would tend to try to meet with Selectboard, although that didn't traditionally happen on a regular basis. Most of our other member towns in our school district have quarterly or monthly meetings with their select board. I know in Heath right now, Budge is having monthly meetings. He's on their agenda every meeting. So when Tricia was elected, Willow and I met with her twice, kind of to introduce ourselves, and kind of started this idea of trying to have this be a little more of a regular thing where we are giving you updates. I mean, the school budget is over half the, this town's and most towns, overall budget. So it's an important thing to kind of be apprised of. And it's tough to only do that at annual town meeting. So we thought this was a good thing. As I said, we met twice with Trisha and talked about ideas of trying to have sort of quarterly connections. It seemed to make sense in one of our meetings that because you guys kind of come to us or should for the public hearing, you kind of meet with us sort of in January, then maybe 2 to 3 other meetings a year, maybe after town meeting and elections have happened. We talked about a June and then a fall, which would kind of be this. And they could have specific agenda items, like if there's something pressing that wants to happen, or can be just general updates that you guys can help us with regularity and what you'd like to see for topics. Obviously, certain times a year there's pressing budgetary issues and things like that, but it's also good to just see how the year kicked off. So that being said, I was at opening day of BSE because my son Xander is a kindergartner and my daughter Drew is a 6th grader this year. Opening day went very smooth. I chatted a little bit with Principal Gilmore. She was excited about the year, and kind of give you an update on enrollment so far, kind of opening day enrollment for our schools. BSE is actually flat, right? We had 268 last year. We have 268 kids this year. Coleraine is down a little bit. They're down 6 kids. They went from 103 to 97. Sanderson also went down a little bit. They went from 135 to 125, so they went down 10. And Mohawk Trail went up 17, and they're 331 to 314. They were at 314 last year, and we're up to 331 this year. So the net is so far 2 more kids than last year. We have 892 kids in the district, and we had 890 last year and 889 the year before that. So kind of fairly stable numbers. Generally, things that we should think about moving forward. I like to keep you updated on, budget timeline, since I'm chair of budget subcommittee, and it is a big part of what the town has to raise money for. Our budget season kind of kicks off here in the next few months. It's in November, kind of mid-November to December is when we sort of build the ideas of what we want to accomplish with the budget. We need, to save a bunch of money. We need to add a program, remove a program, that's the time when we get the ideas to administration of, what we as a school committee feel, what we hear from our town. So that's a good time if you guys have input and want to consider different things before it goes to administration. What we call the DLT, the district leadership team, develops that draft budget. They usually get that to us in December to January for our first draft budgets to really work on, delve into. Then usually mid-February, we, have public hearings and then move on to voting for it as a school committee to then go to town meeting. When we met with Trish, we talked about the idea of, it's always tough to go into a meeting like this and have you guys ask questions that maybe we don't know the answer to, and we feel like we have to do a follow-up. So we thought at that point it was a good idea to present questions ahead of time. Although when Trish did it, we realized, well, we don't necessarily want to tie up the whole meeting answering those questions. So we have delved into Trisha had 4 questions. We have delved into those. I can send an email tomorrow with those, as long as you're okay with that format. We'd rather kind of speak to the schools than answer questions, and we can send our links to, the answers to all of you, if that makes sense. And then what I thought, if you guys do want to move forward with regular meetings, maybe if somebody had an idea for a topic, we want to hear about the sports programs, or we want to hear numbers, or we want to know about the busing contracts or things like that, maybe we could cater what we speak to. And then if you guys have follow-up questions that we can't answer on the spot, do that in email format and we would reply after. We do have a list of we've sort of been developing these one-pager kind of cheat sheets on things like revenue and counting kids and the acronyms we use. Like I mentioned DLT already, and we're going to send that out this week. The one-pagers we've come up with and some of those key talking points and things. So that being said, I'll cut myself short and let Willow take over a little bit.
Yeah, we split up just a few talking points so we could both share, and let me know. I have a little bit of a sore throat, so let me know if I'm a little quiet. So Willow Cohen, the other school committee member for Shelburne, also the mom of a high school senior, been in the district a very long time, so just wanted to share that. In my role, I'm on both the policy and the personnel subcommittee, and I'm also the chair of the communications subcommittee. So with that in mind, I definitely want to continue what I've been trying to do, and happy to take feedback on it as well, which is at least monthly emails, updates to both the select board and to the finance committee. There's an email that I will follow up with after this meeting that will include a lot of opening day information, just really great stuff that's happening within the schools. I wouldn't want to tie up this meeting with it, but I definitely want to make sure that everyone knows some of the great things that are happening. And that will also create a shared drive with all of the cheat sheets that Jason shared, so that there's always access to information, which is really what we want to work on, is with, always have as much transparency as possible. So with that, just a few updates. Many of you may know that Leanne Loomis, who is the director of Pupil Personnel Services, is no longer with the district. She will very much be missed. But Julia Lignori has taken on her role, or the role. And I've known Julia for years. She's been in the district since 2012. She's worked at both BSC and at Mohawk, and is now coming on board in this new position. So just wanted to share that as since she is an administrator within the school, that is a shift and she is starting, she's up and running. I will share some save the dates as well in an email, but the dates that I'm sharing with you are actually community dates. So there's dates where people can come and participate, join an event, come see what's happening in the schools, both at the high school and at BSC. The BSC is doing some great things, including fundraisers. A quick update on solar. Our solar is up and running. It took a while. It started probably in April. It took much longer than we had expected, but we're great. We're thrilled. We had budgeted about, because we didn't know if it was going to be up and running, we budgeted about $10,000 for FY25. As of today, the savings is $16,750, but that is for both fiscal years. So it's not completely all the savings, but we're definitely, it's going well. And so it's information as we budget for future years, but I at least wanted to give that update. And there will be sort of a solar celebration happening as part of one of these events I'll share with you, where the classes are actually, including a climate resilience class, are going to do some educational workshops around it. Again, some just quick updates, some notable classes that I wanted to share with you. One is that we're doing a forensic science course for the first time. And the reason I mention it is it's actually a collaboration with Detective Tucker Jenkins, who's coming in to teach the course with another teacher, Travis Minnick, who's been with the district for a long time. So that's also really exciting for us to work with someone within the community who is teaching 5 days a week. And so that's 18 students fully enrolled. We also have American Sign Language, we have culinary, and we have upcoming capstones, and they're working on some great internships. Another question I know that comes up is AP classes. I asked about that, and they're right now they're estimating 12 for the coming year through both semesters. So obviously everything is contingent on enrollment, but when we look through, it looks like there will be 12 for the coming year. And I will get more updates, you know, once we hit the spring season, if anything has changed in either direction. Also, fall sports are up and running. They've got a full schedule of sports: cross-country, field hockey, golf, middle school football, varsity soccer, and volleyball. And I have a lot of the kids come through the house, and they're all doing well and actually playing really well. And then the final update I wanted to share was about Burke 12, because I know that will be there's a lot of work that's happened over the summer, and this is the time over the next few months where there'll be more opportunities for both select board, finance committee, and community involvement. So there are some completed drafts of reports that are up on the website: facilities report, an enrollment report, historical review, and a regional agreement analysis. And what's coming soon is an education report, which will also include a special ed report. And I know that some of the questions that Tricia had around some of the information in other reports, including questions around paras and stuff, that's something that will be looked at in that report. There's also, they're working on a finance and personnel, sort of finalizing that, a community outreach report. Oh, and I mentioned the special ed report. So those are coming soon. Those will be online. As soon as everything is up and running, I'm going to make sure I send everyone the links to each of them so you have them. They're also, because they're long, they're working on executive summaries for all of them as well. So people can sort of pick and choose how deep they want to dig. And then we also,
I'm sorry. We've got a few minutes left, about three until our next appointment. Would you like to leave a little time for any questions or finish up and we'll catch you on the next?
Absolutely. And the only thing I was going to say is that late September, early October is the hope for when to meet with the select boards and the finance committee regarding Burke 12. So that's a time for modeling and getting feedback. So that was actually the end of my report. Thank you.
We actually got a request for a time for Shelburne and Hawley to meet with the superintendent, I believe, on the Burke, the two district 8 town document, which came to us too with all those links, and I appreciate it a lot. A lot of information there for sure.
Yeah.
Appreciate the reports. You're welcome to, as you guys feel you have information that will be to our benefit, to reach out and ask for an appointment. Doesn't have to be quarterly, could be more regular, could be less regular. We leave that to you. We don't want to be your booking agent. When you're ready, call us. Call Terry. And we'll get you in. I do like and want every time that you do come on to invite the finance committee or someone from it to join us. Our role in the day in, day out operation of the school is highly limited. The finance committee is the workhorse for that significant portion of the budget. The town's budget, that being the school. So we definitely want them included. I'm uncomfortable having finance related discussions with you without them present. That's my only take. So great job tonight. I appreciate the info, and we'll look forward to the next one. And by the way, your emails with other information that you send us is just been terrific. I'm glad you're the communications person, because you're doing a great job in that aspect for sure.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, and definitely as questions come up, sorry, please send them my way. Thank you.
Any last comments, Jason? Okay, Andrew?
Jason's talking. Sorry, he was muted. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jason.
I think he waved us off, but I couldn't hear him. It looked like he gave a
No, sorry, the window disappeared. I couldn't find my unmute button.
Oh,
No, I just, you mentioned, did we want to take any questions? Did you have any other questions? Any
I think
members?
Andrew may.
Okay.
You have time for one quick one?
I have 4 questions that I would like to leave with you. I don't think you're going to have time to answer any of them tonight,
Okay.
given Rick's timeline that he's on. But what I'd like to know at a future meeting is, what is the district doing to gather information from parents about the enrollment decisions they're making at the key transition points from grades 6 to 7 and grades 8 to 9? And that's question one. Then the second question is, what information are you marketing to those parents to let them know why they should enroll in Mohawk as they're making those decisions? So there's a listening and then a marketing piece to that. The third question is, what kinds of programming is the district offering to non-college bound high school students? And are you connecting them in some way with all of the free training that awaits them at community colleges that's in the non-credit area, where they can do, you know, career training in a number of different areas? And the fourth question, and my final one, is the school committee taking a position on the referendum question on MCAS? And I'd like to hear more about that before election time. So I'll leave those in your bucket.
Sure.
And if you'd like, I can email them to you.
I think I got them quickly, but we'll try to follow up in an email. Would you like to do that, since we don't necessarily have a next meeting set, and
Either way,
it's an election
whatever.
coming up, and one of those questions is pretty timely.
I would suggest you do it in an email, in that,
Okay.
again, if it's,
So what do we do? Can we send it to everybody through Terry, or do we just send it to all of you guys and you guys don't reply?
Terry
You can
first.
send it to Terry.
Send
Yep.
it to Terry. Okay.
Very
We can
good.
reply individually, just not to all.
Right. Okay.
Great. Thank you, guys. Great job.
Yeah. Wonderful.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Take care.
Okay, our next appointment has been patiently waiting. Tom, how are you this evening? You're muted at the moment. You're muted, Tom. There you
Yes. Technology, yes.
are.
How's everybody doing? I'm doing great.
Couldn't be better.
Hoorah.
Thanks, Tom. Hoorah.
Let's
The
do it.
floor is yours, sir. We have, I think you were told earlier, we have a good 20-minute block for you as well set aside this evening to
Yes, sir.
have the document for, since the end of last week. Found some things that I'd like to bring up that I think need correcting, but there may be a separate process for that. So you can take me to school and tell me, give me an overview of what needs to be done and how to proceed from here.
Well, essentially, all I have from my end tonight would be just a reiteration of what the purpose of this is. I mean, it's a plan on how all the town leaders and other emergency management players are going to get together and work and resolve any emergency issue that comes up. It establishes a framework of how we're all going to work together as a team and learn to efficiently get the job done, whatever it might be. And it's pretty well detailed, as I'm sure everybody's seen as they've read through it. So other than that, the only other comment I would have tonight, the TTX, the tabletop exercise that I'm getting to ask for you if it's all right, if the 24th of October for a tabletop exercise is going to work for everybody. But that exercise right there will be facilitated by Mima, our our local coordinator, Nathan Moreau. He and a few others from Mima will be up. They'll be facilitating this. It'll be a chance for us to validate the details of the SEMP and make changes as necessary. But more importantly, what I see it going to effectively do is get us as a team working together, see how we're all going to interact, see what our duties and responsibilities are, see who's going to be doing what, and get the team formed up and working so that when the time comes, we're ready to go. We're ready to march on.
Is that going to be at the police station?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it's from 9 to noon that day. I have it in, I just checked, it's in my calendar, so. Do you need this, documents, signed and approved that are part of this? At what point do you need it? Before the table talk?
It would be good to have it before the tabletop. However, it's not necessary. If you all see that there's a lot of changes and issues that need to be resolved before it becomes an official document, then let's hold off on it. Once we sign it, it's more or less that's it. I mean, that's what we have. Although it's not a document that's written in stone, it's built into the procedure is an annual review, and as changes are needed, we can make those changes as they come along. So I guess it would be however you feel is necessary. Sign it now or sign it later. I would leave that to your call.
One of the things that you had mentioned in your communication was that some of the things were yet to be determined, and you would need to fill those in before we signed it. Is that correct?
That would be a fair assumption, yes.
So from my, and then I'll let Andrew and Tricia weigh in. From my perspective, I read the thing. I found a couple of minor things, which I can send you by email separately that I found. Just two minor things. Not worthy of mention. One is a doctor that's supposed to be on the Mohawk Trail that hasn't been there in years and years. Just some misinformation like that that we can correct. Other than that, I'd be prepared to sign it as soon as the items you highlighted in yellow in the document are filled in and you're comfortable with it, put it before us.
Okay.
Andrew, your thoughts?
I don't have any additional comments to make at this point. I'll review the final when you've filled that stuff in.
Tricia, you were involved in this quite closely and kept us up to date as well. Comments from yourself?
Well, I want to just publicly acknowledge the work that Tom did on this. It's a lot, and he worked closely with Nathan, and then the three of us got together and went through it pretty much line by line to figure out till we ran out of time in our meeting. So I feel terrible I didn't catch the thing about the doctor en route too. So
minor. That's old school knowledge.
Yeah, there you go.
He was probably gone before you came to town.
That's entirely likely. But I think I'm just going to throw out as an idea that I like a lot better running through the tabletop exercise and then finding where we have gaps and holes, or we find ways to do things differently and update the SEMP at that time. And then we get the opportunity to sign it, because each of us has different levels of experience and expertise that we bring to the table, such as knowing about the doctors en route to that been gone. And other things that we'd want to clear all those up before it becomes our document, because it's much more difficult to go through every time and like update it and update it and update it. And I'd rather get all the tweaking done that we can during the tabletop exercise, finalize the document, and then we're good to go. And then it's really our document. Everybody will understand it. So that would be my recommendation. And then the second thing that I'd like to talk about, Tom, if you could please describe the ICS management system briefly for the folks here, and real, as I see it, the necessity for everybody to have at least that very basic ICS 100 training, which is only an hour long. It's really easy to do online. I think you might even be able to speed up the narration if you want to. So it could be less than an hour, but you do have to answer all the questions correctly to get your certificate. In my experience, it's very critical for people who are involved in this type of work to have at least that very basic level of ICS 100 training, just to understand the structure of it, which is very important to follow during an emergency. So everybody kind of stays in their lane and they do what they need to do. And, you know, so somebody doesn't go and like order 500 meals for 20 people or something, you know, that they're like, well, I just thought we needed a lot of food, you know, and they don't really know what's going on. Everything has to go through the proper chains of command. And to that end, I think this is where the select board has a role right now, because the people who, there are some town employees who are going to be called upon to help out in the case of an emergency. And we would want to make sure that we support their use of their time to take this course, that it doesn't have to be on their private time that they do this, because it is a town sanctioned and necessary thing. And ICS stands for the Incident Command System, which of course it's like a government thing, so it's an acronym. So,
Yeah.
but you'll hear people talk about that. I think it was Cynthia Bettner who sent that question in. So the Incident Command System is a very clear, very structured methodology for making sure that an emergency gets handled in the most efficient way possible. There's constantly updates, am I right, Tom, about how to do things the best way, best practices, forms that they already have figured out. This is the best way to keep track of certain things. So that would be my two main comments about that. So I don't know if we have to take a vote or just just say yes, anyone who works for the town and has their name listed as somebody important to this has the blessing or the approval of the select board to do their ICS 100 training on town time.
I would highly, highly recommend that everybody in a leadership position take the course. And like you said, it's very simple, and it doesn't take a lot of time, but it explains in not so much detail that it gets overburdening, but enough detail that it describes how we really need to work together as a team and where the roles and responsibilities lie and who answers to who. And Tricia, you did a great job explaining. So that's about all I have to say about it, but I would highly recommend that it become a requirement for the leadership of and other intricate participants in any emergency event.
Okay.
Can you send Terry the information on how you sign up for those courses?
Sure. It's very easy. I'll do that. I have it already written out with photos and everything. You go to the Emergency Management Institute online, and it's very easy to get through.
Would it be helpful if some of us could get that done before the table top?
Very much so. I'll send that out tomorrow.
Send it to the whole list.
Okay.
You think should take it.
All right.
I did actually have one question I forgot as I was flipping through my notes from when I did read the document last week. Under shelters, you listed half a dozen or more.
Yes.
And it says the following facilities are designated as emergency shelters and may be activated during times of emergency. I didn't know there was such a thing. That's happened. It's been voted. These people have agreed to it, because there were some that surprised me.
Well, Fellowship Hall, I know, has an MOA, a signed MOA, a signed document, and they've
Okay.
agreed to it. The others were in there as I from a previous SIMP that the town had, so I'm not familiar with a lot of them. That's one of those things on my to-do list. However, the very last one, Davenport Sugar House, he actually approached me one day and volunteered that
Okay.
because he has a generator and everything else. So I know of the two that are valid, and the others would have to be contacted, and the MOAs, MOUs would have to be renewed.
Okay, then that's another thing to get done before you ask for the signatures on this too, because that would be a tweak, as you called it, Tricia.
Mm.
Good.
Okay.
Excellent. I'll send you the other two things that I noticed in an email, but that one
All right.
I didn't know we had so many designated, and apparently we don't, or we do, they haven't been renewed. So thank you for clearing that up.
All right. One other bit of information I have, if we're done talking about the SEMP, I got a couple of quick notes. We have what we're calling the EOC team, the Emergency Operations Center team. Currently, we have 7 dedicated individuals that have been training. We've had 4 training sessions. These are the people that are going to help run the Emergency Operations Center during an emergency event. They'll take the messages over the phone or over the radio, plot things on the operations map, and help with resolving issues and providing logistical support. Very enthusiastic crew. And they've been doing well. Just wanted to let you know that. We have one more training session next Monday night, and they'll be participating in the tabletop exercise as well.
Terrific.
And last note I have is that I'm out of the net on I'm gone on my wife and I leave on the 19th of September. We won't be back till the 25th of October.
Have a great time.
Oh, we will.
And in your absence, is that John Taylor is acting EMD, is that correct?
Yes, I mentioned to him and he's agreed.
Okay. Do we have to have anything in writing like about that just to know?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
So Tom?
Yes, sir.
That sounds like you're not going to be at the tabletop exercise then, huh?
You said the 25th of October, you weren't coming back until, I think you meant a different date.
The tabletop is October 24th.
26th. No, 24th. No, I'm sorry. The 20th, that's not right. We're coming back the Monday before the tabletop exercise. I think it's 25 days we're out. That's something.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, that's the 21st.
Yes, that sounds better. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for correcting it for me.
Just checking.
I wouldn't miss the tabletop exercise for too much.
All
It's gonna be a
right.
lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun, but more importantly, be a huge learning experience.
Terrific. Well, thank you for the presentation. I think we got it covered. Thank you for coming in. Have some great time off. I do see a hand up in one of the windows. This is not a public hearing, so there's no comments at this time. There is the possibility, depending how late we go this evening, of some public comments at the end, and you'd welcome to chime in then.
Rick,
Yes.
I just want to clarify, do we have to do anything specifically like through Terry to make sure that the employees know that they're allowed to use their time on the clock to take the ICS 100?
I don't have a problem with that. Terry, is that an issue? Does it set a precedence?
When I
Sure.
receive the list of individuals who you'd like to take the training, I'll convey that message.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, item A under old business number 5, the knotweed management plan. This has just grown like knotweed. We've gone round and round. We've got a whole bunch of information. There were multiple videos sent around. I think we've all probably done our due diligence and watched them and made our own impressions. And none of us need to be experts, but the select board needs to approve a procedure to go from here for our highway superintendent, which is why this is listed as the knotweed management plan. So we had an expert from town weigh in at our last meeting with a recommendation of a chemical spray process on the locations. We had experts with the cover and smother route. We ultimately, I think, Andrew being the liaison to the highway department, we got to the point where we asked the highway superintendent to give us his recommendation. He's our road superintendent. He's also had all of this information sent to him. And today he did share his opinion. I'll just read it really briefly, but he's here and he can speak to it himself. After extensive research, Jeff is recommending the most cost-effective and timely approach of pulling the knotweed plants and smothering the area with the plastic or road construction type paper as outlined in the multitude of sources for this process of how to do it. I think New Hampshire was a good example who uses it regularly. Jeff, did you have any other comments? You are muted if you do. There you go. We're not hearing you.
Hearing me?
There we go.
Yes.
I feel it's the most logical choice. And just because I know a chemical is a more, stop it right now in its tracks, but being it's knotweed, it's still like a 5-year treatment. And one of the individuals that actually quoted me for spraying it, not the cut and dab style, but spraying it, brought it to my attention that the surrounding vegetation around that area is also going to get hit by the chemicals. And I think that the stage that the plants are now, if I were to go over and remove them carefully, and if we were to smother and kind of suffocate what's left, not allowing it to breathe like it would if it was just wide open, I think we may be able to contain it if we do it now. I think if we let it go too much longer, then it's going to be one of those larger colonies that it's just going to be difficult to battle.
I think we are in a sweet spot from all the various videos and links that we were sent over the past several weeks as we investigated this. They all talked about September, October being a perfect time to attack it. So I definitely want to see that we get moving on this as soon as possible for sure. Nip it in the bud, as they say, right? Andrew,
Yeah.
you had a comment?
Yeah, just one clarifying question maybe for for Jeff. Is Connie Clark the only abutter to these patches of knotweed, or are there other abutters?
No, Mrs. Cosby is also in a butter.
Okay. And have you consulted with her as well?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I don't know any way on how to get in touch with her. It's
Okay. And I figured since Connie Clark is here, with your permission, Rick, can we invite her to just share her thoughts on her consultation with Jeff, and if she's in the same place with the recommendation he's making? Because my understanding is the knotweed now exists on both public and private land.
as in a butter to the project on which we will take a decision tonight, I will allow Connie to make a comment. But in the absence of having your land directly in it, again, this was not an advertised public hearing. It was a discussion of a plan of what we do now.
Yeah,
Looking
no, I
back-
just want to make sure that before we take a vote that we've gotten the input from both the public and the private folks for whom the knotweed is existing.
I appreciate that. Connie, would you like to comment?
Do I unmute myself?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Oh,
You're
and
good. You're good, Connie.
No, you just
No, no,
muted
it's-
yourself again.
you were unmuted, but now you're not.
I now?
There you
We're
Yes.
good.
But perfect. As you can imagine, I'm a master gardener and a beekeeper. And one of the videos that you looked at, I hope, was one that I received from another master gardener, the one that dealing with the Connecticut Housatonic River. And there are now one, two, see, three patches on my land, plus knotweed growing up in all the rockery that was put down opposite House 88. And that would be dangerous. That's just going to have to be somehow pulled and monitored. I don't know. So it's all over the place. My concern is the quality of soil that brought the knotweed in. I was looking today and I sent photos to Cynthia. This heavy clay that's going to be hard to deal with and get everything uniform. There's rocks, there's metal debris. I sent that to Cynthia. There's tree trunks, there's rocks. It's going to, and Jeff and I talked about that. I think you'll agree, Jeff, that the nature of how this dirt was dumped will present a problem, and that would I just would like you all to recognize. Down farther on Mrs. Cosby's land, there's autumn olive that was just thrown there. So there wasn't due consideration as to the quality of dirt that was brought in. The other question that my neighbors and I are concerned about is how much more dirt will be brought in for these 18 culverts and their drainage swales, and what will the quality of that dirt be? So it's unfortunate that this happened, and the knotweed was allowed to get going. Another concern is knotweed rhizomes can go as deep as 7 to 10 feet. I'm noticing in how it's emerging that some is coming up later than the rest. So that would have some bearing. I did pull it on all the tops, both in Mrs. Cosby's and mine, and I can see that if you pull it, you do push it back, but you don't push it back entirely. So it just, all I'm asking is, now that this happened, unfortunately, and has abraded the quality of my property, I feel, is that we work together and work courteously and fully with each other, because I mean, I'm happy to pull too. I stopped pulling so you guys could see how it comes back. But what's interesting is where I did pull it, it has been pushed back. So pulling will help. I certainly think, I just have my doubts about the smothering, given the terrain, given the rocks, I do not want any trees that are healthy to be cut down. As I sent a picture to Cynthia, there's a shagbark hickory on my property that is surrounded now by knotweed that needs to be saved. I just will not bear to have any trees sacrificed because they ended up surrounded by knotweed. So if we could all just really work together, understand each other's concerns and constraints, that would make me feel a lot better than I've been feeling.
Well, I would hope that we've been doing that right along. We've tried to be transparent and look at everything that was sent to us from every possible source. But the question we've heard you, thank you. You didn't answer the question. There's two options we have right now. I have what I consider a significant amount of property in Shelburne. If this had happened on my property, I know what I'd do in a heartbeat, and attack it, guns a-blazing. What Andrew's question was, is the highway superintendent's recommendation, do you support it, or would you prefer the other of only two options that we know of at this point, to have the spray?
The spray won't work on young knotweed. The spray works on knotweed that is mature enough so that the stems can take the herbicide back down to the rhizomes. So to me, that one's off the table. My concern, and I tried to answer it, is yes, smothering in the best of terrains can be effective. But what I'm asking you all to do is take a look at all the dirt that's been dropped onto my frontage and the Cosby frontage, and just see all those rocks. There's trees that are embedded. There was metal today. I pulled it up and sent a picture to Cynthia. You can't just cosmetize it. You've got to really look at what happened, and sadly what happened. So that's all I'm saying, is I'm happy to work with Jeff. Or we also on August 19th received emails from both Jeff and Andrew indicating that there would be some kind of a hearing at the Shelburne fire station, because my neighbors are concerned as well. And I gave Cynthia the list of the neighbors who stopped me in the road and asked what I've heard from you guys, and I say nothing. I haven't heard anything since August 19th, when I was asked to not be involved anymore. So what we just wanted, it's a beautiful road. This didn't have to happen. If we can just get it resolved, it's going to take, even with smothering, it's going to take 5 years before we know whether it's going to work or not. We're willing.
It'll be an ongoing battle.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. So understand our concerns.
Oh, completely.
We care about that road. We pick up the litter. We do everything.
And we're trying to look forward and say, okay, it's unfortunate as the dickens. No one wanted this to happen. It did. What do we do now? We have the two choices. And I think doing nothing in September and October, letting those continue to grow through the rest of the growing season, and then start growing come spring, makes no sense at all. I'd rather do, I thank you. I'd rather do something than sit on our hands. And
well, I'm willing to start again tomorrow. I stopped pulling just as I said to Cynthia, I want everybody to see the difference between where I pulled and what's down the hillsides. I'm happy to start pulling again and to use my garden knife, but I would like assurance from you folks tonight that you understand that we want to mitigate this, eradicate it, and we want to be consulted. It's only fair.
Yep. And you have been completely, I want to say, you've been very complete and thorough in what you've sent us, and I appreciate it a lot. Andrew, you had a question?
Just a couple of things to share. One is, Connie, about the public meeting. I'm not sure I was clear enough about the nature of that meeting that we talked about. That public meeting is designed as a site meeting for the project, for all the abutters and anybody else who wants to show up, to understand the 1.5 mile road reconstruction project, the drainage structures, how it will go, the timeline, the contractor, et cetera. Knotweed can certainly be talked about then, but we, set aside this time in this public meeting to talk with you about knotweed in particular. And so it sounds like I'm taking your response and I'm taking the moving forward part about it. We can't go backward and change what's already happened. So we have to go forward from where we are. And so it sounds like you've been in communication with Jeff, and he's going to continue to work with you. And you know, the recommendation that he's putting forward, just FYI, my one experience with that approach is observing a homeowner using that plastic smothering method on Crittenden Hill on a section of road bank just as steep as the one that you are dealing with there. And it took a couple of years, and it looks like they successfully dealt with the knotweed using that method. So I think it is possible. If it doesn't wind up working, we can come back and address it with glyphosate in a couple of years. You know, I think there's more tools in the box here, but I think Jeff's recommendation is a good one. And if he wants to engage you in the knotweed pulling project before the fabric gets laid down, he will definitely reach out to you about that.
Okay. I've only met with Jeff once on August 19th. Then I was led to by the letter from Mr. LaPierre to stand back. And so it's just been working with Cynthia.
So between then and now, we have been gathering a lot of information.
Yeah, but it hasn't been communicated to us.
So now here it's being communicated. This is the time.
Okay, that's exactly why I showed up tonight, because my concern is I want to do right by this road environmentally. I want please look at the soil that was brought in. Can any of it be removed? It's hard clay right down at Great Brook. And in it is the knotweed and the metal debris and the logs. I mean, it's going to take some landscaping to get it to the point where you've got rid of the knotweed and you're ready to put down the fabric. Because there's rocks that'll tear it. There's tree stumps that'll tear it. I just want assurance that we're looking at this with as much integrity as we can.
Great. Well, I think we agree it's a long-term process, whether you went with the spray or you went with the smother. It's not a one and done, and we appreciate that.
The spray would be premature.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, Tricia?
So I visited the site on over the weekend, and first of all, Jeff, I haven't been able to officially meet you, so welcome to Shelburne. Thank you very much for your service to our town and our people and all our roads. And I'm really sorry you have a huge thing on your plate right now between this and the road closure today. So, I appreciate you very much for being here. Thank you for everything that you'll do for us. And let's see if we can try to make this particular issue a little bit easier for you if we can. So I have a couple of questions about this. First of all, when I saw that, I'm just going to call it a rock fall, where they put all the boulders immediately across from 88, house number 88. I don't believe, and there was knotweed growing up between the rocks, which means somehow the dirt that was laid underneath there was also, let's call it, contaminated with this invasive species. I don't know as yet, because it actually started to pour, if that dirt also includes seeds or rhizomes for Oriental bittersweet and autumn olives, both of which are invasive species and both of which have been located in this area in the new fill. For that reason, I'm going to ask about this rock fall area. Are you familiar with the area I'm talking about, Jeff?
Yeah. I was told that it was a heavy rain that came down that kind of wiped everything out. I mean, if you look down at the bottom of that rock fall, you can see all the spoils and washouts down at the bottom inside the wood line. And I was told that the bank would just eroded to a point where the infrastructure of the road was and it wasn't safe. Where the material came from, I know it didn't come from in town. I know it was outsourced, and I think it was Maple Row Farm, where it came from. I'd have to look back, maybe give Mark a call on where he got it, but I don't believe it came from in town, as opposed to the other stuff, which was material recycled off the side of the road in town during the springtime, which nothing was growing, and they put it there for shoulder support. And then some of it kind of, from what it looks like, it just spoiled over down too far. But it is clay.
It's definitely clay. I can confirm what Ms. Clark has described regarding the clay consistency of that. And I did see pieces of metal, pieces of asphalt. It's very, not your typical soil of what we see, especially out in the rural areas of Shelburne that tend to be quite fertile. And I guess unless you're a knotweed, nothing else is going to grow there. So going back to the rockfall, there's knotweed growing there. I don't actually see, especially with the types of rains we can expect to get, that any type of covering you put on there is actually going to survive long enough to adequately smother the knotweed. There's jagged parts of it sticking up. There's it's a very uneven cover. So I would think in that particular area, what might be more effective is using the glyphosate applied by, a certified, it's chapter 40 or something like this, not chapter 40.
A licensed applicator through the Mass DEP.
Hi. Welcome to community government, little guy. Exactly. So you know what I'm talking about. I would be really nervous to have your staff and you out trying to cover up that rockfall. It's like walking on scree. I don't know how you would do it.
That treatment in that area, that type of treatment in that area isn't feasible. Yeah. Not in the rock area.
The smothering cover.
Yeah, because you need plastic to ground. Well, I mean, you're going to put down some mulch before you put the plastic, but you want ground to plastic contact as much as you can to kind of choke, suffocate as much as you can to not allow any sunlight or anything like that. I mean, air and water, it's all, the plants are just like us. They thrive on that stuff, especially that stuff.
You'd have your work cut out for you for sure to prepare it. You understand how it works, obviously, and to prepare the area to be covered with this process is going to be a whole.
Right. So Rick, that's the question is, so for the rockfall area across from 88, that's not going to be covered. That one's going to be sprayed.
If we make a motion and pass it.
Okay. So I guess my question to you is then we would have to make two separate motions, correct? To make sure that the spraying happens where the rockfall is and the smother and cover happens in the other area.
However it comes. Yes, Andrew.
I just think we should hear the recommendation of our superintendent and then make a motion.
We did hear, I read the recommendation.
So
which was only about the cover, there was no mention of the spray.
That's why I'm bringing it up, because the smothering cover is not going to work in that area across from 88.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that there was any growth in that section. I was just focused on the 3 past that.
Yeah, so I saw it on Saturday. I probably have a photo, but it's a pretty tall stalk. You can't see, but it was maybe about 2.5 feet tall. So, and that was just, one that I saw. I did want to ask you, my understanding is that the glyphosate application will actually work on young, young-ish knotweed, that we don't have to wait for it to have actually gone through a larger life cycle. Is that your understanding as well?
All I got from the applicator was that he could spray it. They're not big enough to do the cut and dab approach with that chemical. And then he just said that surrounding vegetation around that area will also be impacted by the spray. And I know there were shoots. I knew they were too young to do the cut and dab. But with this, it's still a 5-year annual treatment where you're coming back and doing the same thing. So if you can, in my eyes, if we can avoid such a treatment, that stuff, especially around cotton. I mean, she's got bees and all that, and she doesn't need that stuff around there.
The size, so the slope, let's talk about the slope on Miss Clark's area too. That is a really steep slope, and it's extensive, and it does actually, a lot of the growth goes straight down to the stream, and there's onto the Cosby's property as well. I don't know, just looking at it, how much staff time would be required to pull all of that up. And if it is potentially too hazardous to do that way, is there an option where we could pull up as much as possible, spray the rest, and then smother it, cover it, whatever else? I'm really quite concerned about safety in that area, because it's steep, it's slippery when wet, and it's a lot of invasive species. And would we be removing just the knotweed, or would we be removing also the other 2 invasive species that have been identified there?
Them are all very good questions. Yeah, I mean, if it was me, I would spray, but I'm looking at other aspects. You know, like I said, Connie is a beekeeper. She doesn't need that stuff around. We all know what that chemical has done in the past. I know they've cleaned everything up as far as the treatment and what it does, but.
So, yeah, so my understanding is as long as you have a category 40 certified applicator who's there to supervise, you can get it done. And the gentleman from UMass Extension, I spoke with him today about these, because I had a lot of questions for him about how to do this. And he mentioned that, you know, really now is the time to treat it, and using this category 40 a certified applicator, that's what UMass Extension is there for, and they can meet with us or help us identify how to do this the best way so that we don't have to come up with another plan again and again and again. And hopefully we'll get the other broader issue addressed at a different time about where the fill came from and how we can prevent this from happening, because I know we don't want to have to do this all the time.
Rick,
Andrew.
I guess I would just make the recommendation that we accept the recommendation that Jeff made tonight and proceed with that approach for the time being and see how far we get with it. I think we've all acknowledged that both the fabric smothering and the glyphosate are long-term projects. And so and if the glyphosate spraying is more effective when the plants are larger, then we'll actually be in better shape to come back and consider that option maybe next year or whatever the next appropriate interval is to evaluate the situation. But from everything I've heard tonight, my feeling is go ahead with the recommendation Rick made to smother as much of it as you can and see how far we get with that approach.
I'm going to disagree with that. I'm sorry. I think Jeff has made clear that there were some other questions and that actually there would be areas that would be safer to use under the proper conditions and supervision. It's actually okay to apply this glyphosate in the proper manner that isn't as dangerous than somebody slipping and falling and getting really hurt. And then we have a liability or disability situation on our hands that could have been avoided if we thought about this clearly. But since you did bring up the concerns, you know, some environmental concerns, I believe from my discussion with the gentleman from UMass that that it would be more efficient and actually when you pull on those, and I think Ms. Clark already described this in her experience, that it'll snap and then the rhizomes still stay underground and will sprout again. So the spraying while there's still vegetation above the ground is the only way that you're going to be able to eradicate this plant. Because
So,
the
Tricia, the
rhizomes.
reason that I'm making the suggestion that I'm making is that this is both a public and a private project. And so unless you have the agreement of the private owner to the chemical approach, we're kind of talking at cross purposes here. So I'm suggesting we go forward with the method that has broad support at the moment and then see where we get with that.
So is that meaning that the owners that we know are the Cosbys and Ms. Clark, and Ms. Clark is here? Ms. Clark, based on this, I guess I would want to know from you if you would entertain the idea of being able to eradicate this. And I'm going to use these because there was Oriental bittersweet on your property. I didn't see the autumn olives, but the man from UMass did. And I'm nowhere near close to being any kind of plant expert. So I'm taking their advice that he thinks that the best way to get rid of this is by using the application process. It seems safer for everyone. Would you consider allowing the glyphosate application on the invasive species on your property?
Can I speak now?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm asking you that question.
Well, I
Thank
sent
you.
an email to Cynthia this afternoon laying out my concerns about chemical versus smothering versus manual. And Brandy also spoke with me about noting that how close this knotweed and any application would need to be to the brooks, both Mrs. Cosby's area of her brook and mine, that he asked if the Conservation Commission had been involved. And he mentioned something called a vegetation management protocol. I feel it's too premature for me, given the condition of the dirt and all the rocks and all the debris that came in. I really can't say which way I would go, except that in my humble way, I will continue to pull on my property, you know, because I have an ethical need to do that. I stopped doing it for 2 weeks for you guys to see what was happening. I see that it slowed it down. I have very little confidence in all of you. I'm sorry. And I would just want to do right by my studying, my I don't want to be put in a position of saying something that I'm not ready to say, you know, given the bees, given pollinators, given the brook, given the wetlands, and that rock folly. I'm willing to work with Jeff. I'm willing to read whatever he wants me to read. I've been doing that with Cynthia. I don't know what to say. I'm really at my wit's end in terms of how this happened, how quickly it took off, and how all of us on the road are wondering what we do about it.
Well,
That's- I'm
Rick, if I
sorry.
may.
Thank you
Rick.
again. Tricia?
Yes, so Miss Clark,
Mhm.
please accept our apologies for the way that you feel. I'm sorry that you feel this way, that you have no confidence in us. I honestly feel like I tried really, really hard. I was out in the rain with Cynthia on the edge of your property trying to understand this problem. So I spent an hour and a half on the phone with Mr. Prostek.
Mhm.
In my mind, if I were an impartial observer to that, I would say that select person Trisha Yakovone Biaggi does have integrity and is trying to help you. So I'm sorry that you feel that we aren't listening, because I think that's the entire reason that we're here. And we really do want to help.
Mhm.
Now, I did a lot of learning about this too. And I'm also concerned about the safety of our town employees.
Sure.
And as you noted, there's a lot of clay in that fill that went down there. And how slippery is clay when wet? It's very slippery. And I'm very concerned that someone's going to get hurt doing pulling as part of their job for the town of Shelburne. And this is why I'm suggesting that for these very steep areas, and especially exclusively at the rock fall, that the glyphosate option be the one that we use to protect people's health also. I in no way mean that to denigrate what you do, and I don't mean that in a way to belittle your work with the bees, because I know the pollinators are very important and significant to our ecosystem. And I applaud you for doing all that excellent work with them and to be so concerned about this issue. I would like, you have to understand too, our position is difficult in needing to get the work, trying to find the best solution. Sometimes we don't have a ton of time, but I think we've dedicated a lot to this. And we don't mean in any way to push you to make a decision, but as Andrew mentioned, we need to have that cooperation of which you spoke and which we would like to foster here today. And I think we could do that.
I would like to agree with that as well, Tricia. I said earlier that I have a reasonable amount of property, and if this had happened to mine, I know what I would do, and it would be the spray in a heartbeat. The cover and smother, all those videos that we got sent say that the knotweed can go dormant for 10 years. That's a long time, and it can still come back. So we all appreciate this is a long-term project. Even the spraying is not a one and done. It's probably a 3-year from all the different things that we've been sent and watched and videos and research. It's probably at least a 3-year process. It has to be done by the appropriately licensed people, and I would want it sprayed yesterday were it on my property. So I'm in an agreement with that. And when we had input from a local specialist in this area, her recommendation at our last meeting was to spray as well. Who is Nick Wallstrom? Is Nick from UMass? I see him on. I'm wondering if he was the weed specialist from UMass. The name is familiar.
Oh, the gentleman I spoke with was Randy Prostek. He is the
Hi,
weed specialist
can
that I
everybody hear me?
spoke with. Yes, but I was
yes.
talking, excuse me. Yes, so Randy Prostek was the gentleman from UMass who I spoke with. And he offered a lot of assistance for us also in terms of identifying a category for, I always have to check my notes for what he called it, the category for.
40.
No, it's a category for applicator of the glyphosate. They have to have a special licensure in order to apply it.
Category 40 applicators.
Hi there.
4, not 44.
Hi.
Oh,
Can people hear?
Nick, who are you with?
My name is Nick Wallstrom. I recently just purchased a parcel. It's landlocked, but it's
Okay,
above
you're not
108 Old Greenfield Road.
You're not a specialist in the weed control from UMass.
No, I am not.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm just listening.
We're all right. You'll need to mute your self again. I'm sorry we can't take your comments again. Not an advertised public hearing. I'm so sorry.
No, absolutely, no problem.
Okay. So here we are, back to the crux to the issue. Do we sit on our hands, or do we make a decision and let Jeff and Connie work out the line between her property and the others if she wants to proceed with one or the other? It just doesn't seem right to not do anything. Everybody's upset and hates that this happened. We can't look backwards. We got to look forward. How do we stop it as quickly and best as possible? And as Tricia pointed out, the UMass expert, our own local expert that weighed in last meeting, all say that spray is the way. And so I agree, the liability factor of that. I too spent a lot of time walking that road over the weekend. It's as steep as can be. I'd hate to be on it pulling weeds. I think Tricia has a great point there. I personally would be in favor of authorizing the spray. We don't make that decision, however. That would then trigger the appropriate application to the Conservation Commission. It's out of our hands. The best thing that we can do is try to keep the ball moving for you and the Cosbys and the town to mitigate this problem. And
Sure.
we do nothing, that's a failing on our part, in my opinion. I think we should grab the bull by the horns, pick a route, support that. And if that's the case, that we're going to do a pull and cover, then our highway superintendent has to go to Conservation Commission and put in an application. And that's going to take time. And again, we got a perfect two-month window, and we're what are we, the 9th already today in that first month. If we go with the spray, then the applicator has to make that application, go before public hearing, the whole 9 yards. You will have more opportunity to weigh in on that as well and have more time. You said you're feeling pressured to make a decision. You would have more time either way this goes this evening, but for additional opportunity to speak, because they would end up with a public hearing by the Conservation Commission.
So let me just say again, Mr. LaPierre, I too have spoken with Cynthia and with Randy extensively. And I think what Garth Lapointe, who my neighbor, it doesn't affect him, but he's totally has the same environmental instincts that I have. We would like a meeting that would allow us to know what Randy said, that the Conservation Commission does need to be involved because of the wetlands and because of the brooks. I've been doing this on my own. I've been walking the road, pulling it, going down. I know what it's like to revel, go down, pick it up, come back. I was there this afternoon. So I would just like us all to get on the same page and do it properly. I've benefited from Cynthia, I've benefited from Randy, but I'm still alone. And I appreciate that you and Trish have come out in the rain. I've been out in the rain too. So how can we navigate this public versus private situation that happened so that we can get beyond it. I don't know. I don't think it can be done tonight. I'd like to have the kind of meeting that would be constructive with Jeff, with Randy, with Cynthia, and do it right.
I think that it's the Conservation Commission's court, in their court at this point.
Yeah, that's what Randy said.
Exactly. So let us
Rick?
bump it. We should bump it to them.
Sure.
Andrew.
Can I just get clear on it, the pull and cover approach? Why does that need Conservation Commission approval?
According to Faye, I believe it was, she wrote that because it's a disturbance in a wetland area, that it would require it regardless. So one way or the other, it's going to Concom.
It was, that's right, Rick. It was actually because there's that stream that goes right under Old Greenfield Road. There's a 100, possibly a 200-foot buffer. That's the thing I wasn't able to quite grasp
It's 100
over
though.
the weekend. So it's definitely, but it's definitely right. That's exactly right, Rick. It's definitely within 100 feet of the waterway. Whether the buffer actually extends to 200 feet is something that's unknown right now. But I think that the issue became that, you know, I think that there wasn't anticipated movement of things on the road when they started preparing and I guess for this work. So this is where I'm a little bit fuzzy on the history because I wasn't on the board when everything happened with it. But I think that or when the I guess maybe I was, but I don't know all the details. So what's happened now is something that unfortunately we couldn't identify until 2 weeks before they want to lay the asphalt. Anything that involves disturbance of any sort within 100 feet of a waterway comes under the Concom's jurisdiction.
So Rick,
Yes, Andrew.
when does the COMCOM meet?
I would ask them if we take a vote tonight to hold a special meeting because they just, maybe they meet tomorrow night. Oh, well, yeah, they do meet tomorrow night. In fact, on the agenda for the Concom tomorrow night, I will be attending to listen to this, is a application for the use of the spray on invasive plants on Old Greenfield Road by another person way down the road on the opposite side of the road, got nothing to do with this. So I'm curious as to what invasive they're gonna be looking at, and what the decision and discussion is during the public hearing. So that may be of interest for all of us to attend. It's a Zoom meeting of the Concom tomorrow. And when this all came up, there wasn't enough time to advertise adding it to the meeting tomorrow night. So rather than wait a month for them to meet again, whatever we decide to do tonight, again, we can't wait another month to send it to them. And whatever we do is going to go to them, and I think with a request that they hold a special meeting. And take
So
it.
here's the motion that I would put forward this evening to try to move the ball forward. My understanding is that the only method that we had any discussion about that would actually impede the road construction project is trying to go in and take out the fill that's there. And we have dismissed that as an option. It seems to me that we're not talking about bringing in heavy equipment and trying to claw back the fill that was laid down there. I think that would, even if we wanted to do that, it would not be an effective solution at this point. So that's the only solution that would actually disrupt the construction project. The cover and pull and cover method and the spray method can both be done before, during, or after the construction project, as far as I can see. So even though the Concom's meeting schedule is slow and deliberate here, and it's not going to slow down Warner Brothers from beginning the project. So I guess the recommendation I would make tonight is that we empower Jeff to move ahead with a recommendation to the Conservation Commission once he is consulted with Connie. And if they can bring a joint recommendation forward to do glyphosate, empower them to do that. If Connie's not in agreement with glyphosate, then empower Jeff to move forward with cover and, pull, and do that as our next step. But either way, I think we can delegate this to Jeff to bring a proposal before the Conservation Commission that can actually be implemented. Because, I think it's fine if the two of you want to vote for glyphosate tonight, that's great, but I don't know how you're going to do that and then leave Connie's property unaddressed. So that doesn't make any sense to me. So unless Connie is on board with that, I would say, that Jeff's best approach would be to bring the pull and cover method to the Concom. But I would say for tonight, my motion would be to empower Jeff, to authorize Jeff to move forward with a recommendation to the Concom that can be implemented.
Tricia's earlier comment was that we may need two motions to authorize both approaches and take it from there in the vein that you're discussing as to which one might make the most.
You can make a second motion if you want after this one has been discussed and voted on.
I didn't hear it in the form of motion. I'm sorry.
I move that we authorize Jeff to bring an appropriate method for addressing knotweed to the Conservation Commission that can be implemented this fall.
Do I hear a second? There's not a second for that motion. Tricia, is there another motion you would like to make?
I understand what you're saying, Andrew, and the reason I didn't second your motion is that there are a lot of moving parts here and some of them are still unknown. Like what if there's movement of some of this bad fill, or it falls back farther into somebody else's property or something as the road's being constructed. So then we still have more people that we need to contact. I think and make a determination about whether or not glyphosate can even be used. It sounds like regardless, we have to have an understanding of whether Concom is going to approve the use of glyphosate in this area or not before we can even entertain that as an option. So I wouldn't say that we leave it all for Jeff to make the final decision. This is a big decision, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't make it, Jeff, or that you're not qualified. I just think because there are a lot of competing interests here, it would be better if everybody did this in a public forum, and having a type of perhaps even an emergency hearing just to get this taken care of while we still have the time. And the timing now is not just for the road construction, but for the life cycle of these invasive plants. So if this is the best time to really try to start eradicating them in the fall, then we would want to get this process underway in the fall and not wait for the spring. And we don't know what's going to happen with storms between now and then that might wash some of that stuff out and farther downstream.
Yep.
Those are all my concerns. I'm sorry, I don't have a motion for you at this time. Maybe we can figure that out right now. I mean,
The question, if you want to bring this to the Concom is what do you want to bring to the Concom? Because they have to hear a proposal.
Well, I
If you
think,
want to have a meeting with them.
Why can it not be a proposal to use a combination of spray and cover as best fits the site at the discretion of Jeff and the abutters?
and what about the use of glyphosate? Because I think that's also part of the problem is this kids' night. That it's also part of the issue is whether glyphosate could be used in that environmentally fragile area.
They wouldn't rule on that without a request to do it. So that's my point, is make the
Right.
request, find out the answer, and
Mhm.
you can still decide not to do it. But we need the answer. We need the Conservation Commission to take this under advisement with both aspects looked at.
Yes.
That way, then we're going to get an answer, and they'll say, hey, you're welcome to use the smother on the entire thing, but not this because of this that we don't know. Or they'll just say, use whichever is best for the safety of people working. Who knows? We got to get it kicked over to them so that sometime by October we can be dealing with this. Because one way or the other, I mean, 2/3 of the structure of knotweed is underground. These are tiny little baby plants. This is a time to, as I said, go in with guns blazing, in my opinion. So waiting and putting it off to a point where it's too late in the year to deal with it makes no sense at all. I don't see any harm in putting the dual use or the dual approach request in front of them. The spray would have to not come from Jeff. That would have to come from the applicator. So Jeff would need to get to his contact, have that contact make the application to the Conservation Commission and see where that falls. Jeff can submit on his own the request to the Conservation Commission for a cover according to their administrative assistant.
So Rick, according to what we've just heard tonight, the plants are too young to apply glyphosate to.
We heard both sides of that story, and I haven't seen anything that said they're too young. Too young for the snip and inject, but not the spray.
Yeah. Mr. Prosek from UMass did not mention that as a concern. He said that spraying would be effective in this area.
Okay. Well, I will submit your motion then, Rick, since my motion has failed, that we authorize Jeff to bring both approaches before the Conservation Commission and get some answers and then proceed from there.
Jeff had something to say.
Something that hasn't come up yet is Cynthia stated, not verbally, but other than having to be a category 40 applicator, we also would need to get the blessing from the Mass Department of Ag and Resources in order to use herbicide on a right-of-way. This is because the town doesn't have a vegetation management plan for the use of herbicides along right-of-ways.
Yep.
All the more reason to move forward and start getting these answers made. There's a motion on the table.
I'll second that motion.
The motion has been made and seconded to bring to the Conservation Commission the use of both processes as appropriate for these 4 specific areas that we're discussing on Old Greenfield Road. Andrew?
Aye.
Tricia?
Aye.
And I'm aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all for your time and your input. It's a nightmare for us all. This at least gets us on the road to coming to some more information of what is or isn't possible after the Conservation Commission weighs in. And I thank you for your input, Connie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 6, new business. Item C, Shelburne Falls Oktoberfest. This is a request for a one-day beer and wine license for September 29th. This is the one at the Buckland Shelburne Elementary School, if I'm not mistaken. And we approved a similar request at our last meeting for floodwaters, I believe it was. I got that right, Terry?
You did.
Any discussion on this request?
No,
Is Floodwater doing an event at BSE?
No, it's they're going to be one of the people serving. The event is by,
Oh, okay.
This is the PTO is sponsoring Oktoberfest at Buckland Shelburne Elementary School.
Yep.
And they're seeking 2 separate licenses for beer and wine.
I just was unclear on what Rick was referring to about Floodwater.
We've issued 1 beer and wine for the event that Floodwater will serve. And now Pioneer Valley Brewing will be the second server at that
okay.
event.
Got, now I understand. Okay, I would move that we accept.
I second.
seconded. Andrew,
Aye.
Tricia.
Aye.
I am aye. I hope they have a good one, and get good weather. I think it's over by the band shell, if I'm not mistaken, but September 28th, coming up fast. Okay, any other business? Our next meeting, scheduled meeting is September 23rd. Also here, I've agreed to bring in under any other business, a discussion about the use of CPA funds that Andrew has requested just Friday or Monday, very, very late after the agenda was put together. But I'm agreeing to bring it up tonight because it is time certain. I believe there's a deadline of September 12th, Andrew. I think there's a September 12th.
September 15th.
September 15th, I think. Yeah.
So Andrew, what did you want to say?
Well, since I submitted that proposal, I had a little back and forth with Terry, and she cautioned me that she thought the demolition cost would be more expensive than what I had ballparked there. So she was recommending that we put in a number of $50,000 for demolishing the barn on the Mechanic Street property.
Okay, just to make sure we're all on the same page, there were 2 projects that you wanted to have the.
Oh, yeah, let me back up and just say that these are proposed CPA projects to make ready the 2 tax title properties that are on Mechanic Street and Main Street that we have discussed in previous years to be used for affordable housing development. And we brought to the town meeting a proposal that the planning board brought forward to allow the town to develop non-conforming lots for affordable housing development. These are both non-conforming lots, I believe. So my recommendation is that the town would be better served to make those lots usable as affordable housing, both because we need affordable housing and because we will gain more in tax revenue, I believe, from the lots once they have houses on them than if they are purchased by their abutters as lawn extensions, which will make for not much more tax assessment value. So in order for them to be developed as affordable housing, according to our prior conversations with Megan McDonough, who's the director of Habitat for Humanity, which is probably the only nonprofit out there interested and willing to develop small single lots as affordable housing. She said that the Habitat would accept them if they're in a ready-to-build condition. And so that means in the case of the Mechanic Street lot, demolishing the barn that's still standing on that property. And in the case of the Main Street lot, doing the Conservation Commission work needed to make that lot permit ready. So that's why I suggested that we, I got some consultation from Stuart Senior at the Community Preservation Coalition about whether the pre-development work that I'm suggesting would be eligible under CPA. He said yes. So I'm bringing those two forward as potential CPA fundable projects, which would mean that the towns would have to ask for less dollars from its taxpayers because the CPA would be subsidizing the cost of those projects. So which would make them more affordable to do for the town if we can get CPA funding for them. So that's the background on those two projects.
Tricia, your comments? You're muted.
I just wanted to make sure I understand. We think that this might be, or these are ideas that the CPC can look at when they vote and have hearings on what to do with the CPC funds, correct?
That is correct. They have met, put together their policies, and their policies now require any proponent to put in a pre-application by September 15th that they review. If they like it, they then recommend the proponent submit a full application by sometime in November. They then review the full application. If that gets their nod, it then goes to the town meeting for the voters to approve in the spring. So that's how the CPA process unfolds.
Okay.
Oh, and I should mention that the one other piece that would go along with this, if it moves forward through that process, is that we would also need to put onto the warrant a preceding article that would ask the voters to put a deed restriction on the property when we transfer it to Habitat that would require that the property remain deed restricted for affordability in perpetuity. That's a CPA requirement, that the affordable housing be permanently affordable.
Is that for the specific properties, Andrew, or would it be for any thing designated through the CPC as an affordable housing project?
Well, I would recommend we would just do it property by property and have the voters vote on those two particular parcels so that they would understand, one, that we're giving them to Habitat, and that's what they're voting on, is to deed them to Habitat, and two, that they're presenting them to Habitat with an affordability deed restriction on them.
So if that deed stipulation or warrant doesn't pass, would the whole thing
then we would withdraw the next two motions because they would be moot at that point.
Right. So the CPC, would they then not be able to spend any of their money because they wouldn't have any projects on the warrant?
Well, they may have other projects they're bringing forward depending on how much money they've got in their pot, but they're not required to spend the money in a given year. So if the voters reject a project that they've recommended, that money just sits in the pot until another project comes along.
My thoughts on this are that actually I have two concerns about it. Excuse me. Number one, the two projects that you suggest, When Megan sent you back in February of 2023, the outline of what would need to be done to those properties, you missed about half of the ones she listed for each place. She wanted an environmental phase 1 assessment, which we expected would fail. Then she wanted the environmental assessment number 2, phase 2. She wanted perk test for 112. That would require boundaries and a survey. We're not talking about, I think your original numbers were 25 or 15,000 and 5,000. As Terry pointed out, just taking down one building is probably 50,000. What my problem with this is that the CPC funds, the CPA funds, are not tax money. They're a surcharge on our taxes, but they still come from the taxpayers. And there's a pot of money there that we have voted in a CPC committee to receive these applications from everybody, anyone, with the proper qualifications. You must be an S Corp or whatever. There's lots of regulations as to who can submit something for a request in those various categories. But let's talk about the numbers for a minute. These are town-owned properties because they went into tax receivership. We had expenses to take them. We had all the money that was back tax, that was taxpayers' dollars, already lost. Then we had to demolish 2 buildings to the tune of almost 80 grand each place. So the town's people, the taxpayers, have put a ton of money in these 2 properties already. You're proposing something that the best, based on her list of things that she said would have to happen before they would accept them, or actually before they would put it before the board to consider accepting them. Add to that substantial amount of money another possibly $100,000, and then turn around and give it to them for free out of CPC funds. That's not what the CPC was for, in my opinion. The CPC was sold to the voters as a surcharge that'll give us a pool of money that we can then collect until we have enough money in each of the pots that we're required to have to do something good for the town. Is there an argument that says, well, to your point that, yeah, we'll get more tax money from somebody if there's a property there than we do just sitting there, but we're already into it for a ton of money, and it would be a ton of money more that we then have to give away, and that disturbs me. I think the second factor that bothers me even more is that there's 7 members, I'm sorry, there's 9 members, 9 slots on the CPC. We appoint 4 of them. For us as a select board to come in and be the proposer of projects for them to consider seems heavy-handed. I don't like the way it looks, and I'm a hard no on not just these 2 projects for logical financial reasons, but on the thought of it in the first place, that it's our job to basically impose our alleged influence on a committee that we appoint 4 out of the 9 members. So I have concerns about how that looks, and the intent of what that money's for, to do something that we can all step back and say, wow, this is great. It was worth that surcharge. Look what it's done. It's given us a new something. But to turn 2 small parcels into permanently low-income housing, yes, that's a great idea. Love it. Fact is, we don't have, and that's the reason we're looking at that, is we don't have property for development of low-income housing in Shelburne. We don't own any. So for that reason, I'm definitely not in favor of the select board putting forward this, a proposal for the use of CPC funds.
So Rick,
Andrew.
if I can address several of the points that you made. The first one is, if you look at the way that the CPA is structured and the way it's been used in other towns for the past 20 years, many of the projects that come forward to the local CPC committee are presented by their towns, for the very reason that, so it's not heavy-handed, it's about utilizing taxpayer money efficiently. If we want to fix up gravestones in Hill Cemetery, we get to do that with CPA money. It's an eligible activity, for
Let me address
somewhere
that.
around half the cost of what we would pay to do it ourselves.
Let me address that one point then, Andrew, and then you can continue. The Cemetery Commission comes forward and says to the CPC, we'd like to apply. I'm in favor of that. If we had a housing authority and it went to the CPC and said, hey, we've got these projects we'd like to do. I don't like the select board doing it. I agree
So-
it can come from the town, but
So
not.
when the town of Sunderland began its large multi-million-dollar senior housing project, they did that by the town coming forward and using CPA funding to purchase a small lot that began that process. That was the town taking the initiative to develop an affordable housing project.
That's something I think you could sell to the taxpayers.
Well, I'm just saying that it's the same thing. We, the town, are the ones bringing that project forward. And just like the town of Sunderland did. And the other point that you made is that we've sunk a lot of money into these properties, yes. But if you said, oh, that's makes them too expensive, one, you're not going to get that money back by going to auction. You're just not going to get that much money for these properties. Two, if you then said, well, no, we don't want to use these properties because they're too expensive for the taxpayer already, we're going to go out on the open market and buy parcels of land to develop affordable housing on. It's not going to be cheaper, you know. So it's if your goal is to develop affordable housing, which is one of the three main areas of the CPA, which we do have to set aside money for, this is one way to do it. And yes, I would agree with you. I didn't come to this meeting with exact numbers of what we would need to ask. So maybe we need to ask for more money to do the Concom work on the Main Street properties. But the third point is that, yes, part of the money in the CPA is town taxpayer money. That's what people voted for. But the other part is money coming from the state, which matches that, which is why it's cheaper to do a project that you would otherwise spend 100% of your tax money for, when you can spend maybe 50% of your tax money for and get the other half from the state. So it's a matching program.
You know the average match today by that program? It's not 100%.
Well, I'm just saying that we as small towns are in a better position to get a full match than large towns are.
The first year.
No, in every year. And if you look back in the 20-year history of it, you will see that evidence.
I believe the average is in the 30 percentile match or less.
You're averaging it across every town in the state, but if you average it across other comparable sized towns like ours, it's more like 100% match.
Well, I still think the CPC is young. They've had half dozen meetings maybe. It wouldn't be the worst thing in a small town with the small amount of money we're already looking at for that just to be carried forward and have a bigger pot to work with for something that
that's certainly a possibility.
So I don't feel like we need to find a way to spend it. If something warrants it, if it has some value and it gets put through and they decide to bring it to town meeting, God bless them. If they say, we don't like any of the things we've had proposed this year, and they just let it carry over, I say hats off to them for being prudent.
And I totally agree with you, Rick, but I'm proposing a project that I believe has value. If they don't see it the same way, they can say, no, Andrew, we don't think your project has value. Sorry.
Tricia.
I'd like to say, I really agree that we need affordable housing in Shelburne. I think we also need to be smart about how we do that. And I love that aspect of the Community Preservation Act. I shared Rick's concerns about feeling that the select board, by bringing forward ideas to the Community Preservation Committee, that it could feel like we were leveraging our leadership roles to push them in one direction instead of another direction that they might have gone had we not brought this forward. So I talked to Will Flanders, who's the chair of the committee, and he really allayed a lot of those fears for me, because precisely of what you mentioned, Andrew, about, you know, the CPC will gather all of the different applications from the very many different entities. Hopefully, a lot of people, a lot of groups, or whoever will be applying for this in their first go round. And they are tasked with making the decisions about which projects to put forward for CPC funding. And I think that while I understand that, yes, the select board has 4 appointees on there, there are other members of different commissions and at large, and that they were selected because we thought they would be, I mean, I wasn't here, but we thought that they would be reasonable and act with integrity and honesty and not feel pressured by the board. So after speaking with Will about it, I changed my initial opinion that it would feel, and to use your term, Rick, a little bit heavy-handed on the select board's part, sort of telling the CPC what we wanted them to do. And I think it will be, I'm okay with proposing something because the committee can do whatever they want. They've got a lot of people there and they're very smart people. And I don't think that they're going to feel that pressure the same way that I was worried it would come across. So I'm happy to put forward something. Now, part 2 of this is I'm not sure the affordable housing thing on these particular properties is the right way to go, especially if I understand this because I was just talking about selling a house in a different part of the state, and they're like, can't do anything till you have a septic thing done, and you can't do this and you can't do that until X, Y, and Z gets done. So I imagine with these abandoned properties, and I believe the one on Main Street had some industrial stuff going on in it. So that's why it's going to require the level 1 or 2 environmental assessments, or do they both do that? Am I mistaking it for a different property?
They both need it.
They both need it. So that would maybe, you know, that would be something that we could ask that the CPC funds get used for. I'm concerned though, because I always like to think of things in terms of what is scalable. If we're really become good at this and we're able to find areas where we could build affordable housing, and each and every time we do that, we're going to have to preface that with making sure that there's a warrant for that particular property to ensure that their deed remains as affordable housing. I would propose, and this would be a separate thing, and maybe we have to talk about it later, but you brought the idea up, that we also think about putting forth a warrant article that would cover any of those situations that if we develop similarly to how the planning board did it last time, if we develop a property as affordable housing, that that property will be designated in the deeds always as affordable housing going forward. So we don't have that additional step to go through to get to the affordable housing that we want. And if that gets, you know, because each time it could be that people are like, nah, this year I don't feel like voting for this warrant article for that property, and so I'm not going to do it. Then your affordable housing project is tanked right from the get-go. So if you lay the groundwork for allowing the deed to transfer automatically to this new type of deed, then I think that's a great idea to have that in place. And I think we can put this, am I mistaken? There was something with Memorial Hall that you also were proposing. I can't keep all these screens open. I'm getting cross-eyed.
I'm not proposing anything for Memorial Hall this round.
Okay, the library was gonna do
They're
something
gonna,
else.
if they want to bring something forward, they can do that.
Okay,
I was
And I think-
asking on their behalf
okay,
about eligibility for their project.
yeah, so I think,
So Tricia, just to go to your point,
mhm,
I'm friendly to your idea of the sort of theoretical deed restriction transfer concept, but no, that would be a fourth warrant article that we could put before the voters. But there's a difference between asking the voters to vote in theory about future deed restrictions that they might, you know, come across and want the town to say yes to, and actually asking the voters, do you agree to give this property with these restrictions to this organization? That's a concrete ask that you're making of the voters about a particular parcel that they own. And the second thing that you're describing is more of a policy that you're asking them to approve about potential future properties that they might come into ownership of, but that they don't own right now. You know, so those are two different things.
right, and I agree with you. I think I may have misheard. You had said that before they could vote on this warrant article, potentially, they would have to first vote on the deed
Right.
article for those properties. That's what I was trying to avoid, was because if then the voters say, no, I don't want to make sure that this particular property stays as affordable housing, does that mean that then you take off the whole affordable housing equation for these lots off the warrant?
Yes, you would take it off because they've rejected the idea of giving them to Habitat. So if they're not going to give them to Habitat, there's no reason to spend the money to do all that work.
So I'm just going to make a comment, and I hope you take this kindly. That was very condescending, the way that you just spoke to me, and I'm a little offended that I was just trying to ask a clarifying question.
I apologize, Tricia. I
Okay,
wasn't
thank
meaning to
you.
be condescending. I'm
Okay. Well, I encourage you to watch the video and hear your tone, because it
Great.
was a bit condescending, and I'm just trying to understand this process clearly. So my idea, I think I don't have a problem with putting forward anything to the Community Preservation Committee. And if it's for these lots and the Community Preservation Committee agrees that this is something that they would like to spend the funds on after they do their process, then we deal with the supplemental warrants after that.
yes.
And-
Yeah, we have plenty of time between now and May to hash out how, you know, whether and how to put forward these other warrant articles, which are not money articles per se. They're deed transfer articles, you know.
Mhm.
Those we can talk till the cows come home, you know, about. But in terms of putting a financial proposal before the CPC committee by September 15th, that's what we need to decide on tonight.
So what we want to do is have this, so your proposal is not just for the conversion to affordable housing, but to just start the process to head that direction for to pay for whatever the testing is, et cetera. I guess that's what I want clarity on too.
Right, so in order for us to even be in the ballpark of being able to donate these to Habitat for Humanity, the sites have to be in a ready-to-build condition. So this is essentially pre-development work. You probably read in the paper about all the debates about properties in Turner's Falls, which have lots of huge industrial properties that need demolition in order to get redeveloped, and massive costs. But those are all pre-development costs. Before anybody even starts building something new, they need to get the site ready. So that's what these costs are, and those are eligible costs in the affordable housing bucket for the CPA, because they recognize that's part of how you build housing, is you do the pre-development work and then you do the development work.
I think we've all had plenty of time to make our piece. I'll repeat that I think these two particular projects are so financially on top of it to turn around and give it away in the first round of use of CPC funds for 2 houses possibly. The Habitat is interested primarily in Main Street. They've had concern, I'm sorry, in Mechanic Street. In Main Street, they're concerned there's not even a place to have volunteers come to do the work. So that one is a kind of maybe, but I think if anything, it would end up the Mechanic Street one that they'd be willing to accept. That said, I'd rather see us recommend reconstruction of the deck at the potholes, something that the townspeople who put this money in can say, hey, we funded this through a special program, and you bring visitors there, and you got something to show for it. And again, I'm not downplaying the importance of affordable housing. There's a huge lot out on South Shelburne Road that the Franklin Regional Housing Authority owned, and we're going to do affordable housing. I don't know how many years ago, decade ago, maybe, I don't know. And I got a hold of them, and they had offered it to the town of Shelburne, and at the time, the town of Shelburne refused it. There's other options that might have more bang for the buck, as opposed to the potential of 1 or 2 single-family homes with a whole lot more money put in that we turn around and give away. So that's my 2 cents. I think we've all made it. Let's hear a motion.
Terry, do you have a revised number based on what Rick has been saying about the site plan review requirements for those 2 properties?
No, I do not. Oftentimes the FRCOG offers a brownstone study program or grant funded, but until I'm
Brownfield.
directed to start looking for costs associated with these things, I have not spent the time to do it.
So did you mean brownfields?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm thinking I'd love to own a brownstone, but I meant brownfields.
Would one of those, is that the site on Main Street that would require a brownfields assessment? Because it
Both.
was both of them?
Yeah, the house that burned down there was, they anticipate full of lead paint and other things. They anticipate there's contamination in the barn that's left to be done. So it's not just have somebody come in, rip it down, stick it in the dumpster and take it away. They may have to tent the whole thing. That's their concern. That's why they say, don't talk to us until it's build ready. And
The Main Street properties, I think, might require soil testing, but we were extremely careful. We did a hazardous waste survey before demolishing those buildings and identified potentially hazardous material. And that was probably the most expensive piece of the project, was to dispose of that material properly. So it's a matter of determining whether or not the soil is suitable there.
Or the barn structure or the soil under it, but yeah. Who knows?
So-
We'll
So
find out
this,
if we
the
go down there.
CPC is estimating that they may have somewhere in the neighborhood of $140,000 to $150,000 to work with in this round. So if we present, I would move that we present to them to a demolition project for pre-development of the Mechanic Street property of $50,000 and a second site plan, assessment project of $10,000 for the two properties that we would hire a consultant to pursue. And if the number is higher than that, we can perhaps use some ARPA funding to supplement that if needed. But that's where I would propose for the CPA project. And if Rick, if you want to propose a deck project, that's another project you could bring forward. And otherwise we could use ARPA funding on the deck.
I'd rather see what happens. They're in their first year. Everybody's playing it by ear. I'm gonna leave them alone.
Okay,
So you put that in the form of a motion, correct?
I just moved it, yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded, we'll call it. Andrew,
Aye.
Tricia,
Aye.
and I'm a no. The motion passes 2-1. There, another one behind us. Good work, good discussion. Thank you both.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so just FYI, I don't know if Terry shared with you the CPC's pre-development application, but it's really just
It's online.
putting the name of the applicant, what bucket it falls under, and a very brief description. So that's what I plan to submit.
Yeah, if they pick that, then you go to work and come up with some real detail.
Right,
for them.
exactly.
Okay. Correspondence. I could not pronounce Robert's last name to save my life.
You want
Terry?
the resident Italian to do it?
Sure.
Di Nicola Antonio.
Okay, I believe you. Our custodian of I don't know how many years, a good long time, as I understand, has resigned. Terry did have the opportunity to interview a potential replacement who was hired by the senior center and put through background check as well. I believe, Terry, you showed this person through town hall, but didn't have a possibility of getting into the library, the Shelburne Center Library or Cowell Gym. Could you give us an update on where that stands?
Sure. The individual I met with last week, John Heddens, currently cleans for the Shelburne Senior Center. He met with myself to tour town hall. He met with John Walsh at Cowell Gym.
Good.
He met with Lori Wheeler at the Arms, and I'm not sure whether he met with Betsy. But given his schedule and the frequency of our cleaning needs, he's agreed to clean town hall 2 days a week and Cowell Gym 2 days a week, but does not believe he has time for the libraries. So to relieve myself of custodial duties at town hall, I would love to recommend that the board support expanding Mr. Heddens' services to both town hall and Cowell Gym. And then I will do my best to assist the libraries to identify an individual for their buildings.
So we wouldn't need a motion to do that. Any comments before a motion, or where would you like to start?
Thanks for that work, Terry. Is there going to be any change once the fiscal responsibility moves over to the senior, whatever it's called, the regional district for the seniors?
There would be no change. The town of Shelburne the senior center hired Mr. Heddens independently of the hire that I'm proposing. It's just wonderful that he's already vetted. He comes with a great reputation and is eager to help us out.
That's great. Thank you. I'm happy. That's
Go
great.
ahead,
I'm
Rick.
sorry that the other man left.
You want to make the motion, Tricia?
Yes, I move that John Heddens be hired by the town to serve as the custodian for Town Hall and Cowell Gym for 2 days a week each.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. We'll call it to a vote. Tricia,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
and I am an aye. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Great job to find that, Terry, to turn it around and not leave us, having you as our janitor, our custodian, I should say, any longer, like you don't have enough, plates in the air to juggle. So thank you for what you've done in the interim, and let's bring him on board. Correspondence, Department of Energy Resources Green Community Award, $75,734.
Excellent work. Congratulations, energy people on the call. You're all hiding behind your video camera off.
Okay. I got behind in my paperwork. Okay. This was a Department of Energy Resources Green Communities Division approved the $75,734 for the following projects in the town of Shelburne. $27,550 for the Cowell Gym, that's the energy saving window blinds, and $48,184 for the town LED streetlight conversion. The next step is the Green Communities Grant Coordinator will follow up with the contact listed in our competitive grant application, which I think is John Walsh, if I'm not mistaken, to discuss the next steps, which include coordination of the grant contract process. So that's just informational, I think, tonight. There's no vote to be taken that I'm aware of. John, you're muted. So,
Are you asking John to unmute?
I was trying. He continued to talk and wasn't looking up. John, can you hear me? We cannot.
We can't hear you. It looks like you're muted now.
Did I say something wrong? Are you the contact on it? You think so? Okay. Well,
Well,
we'll have a spot at comments at the end if you can figure out your mute.
just for clarification's sake, Rick, all grant contracts go through the town for execution. So that the contract will be sent to the town for the select board to sign, and then
Okay.
the project will get started.
Okay. The letter said the contact listed, so I didn't know who we had listed on that contract. But that's regardless, it'll come to us for signatures anyway. And then the third and final correspondent, Christopher Curtis, regarding seeking representative for the Deerfield River Watershed Association. Tricia, I'm not sure if you were on the board when we had this discussion, but it did come before the board. They asked us to support it. We did. It turns out so did everyone else. And the letter that you have from your packet explains it pretty clearly. So they're trying to create a Deerfield Wild and Scenic River Study Committee. And they're looking for a representative of the various towns that are going to be involved in this Deerfield River Watershed Association area. I am flat out. I can't take one more thing on for town duties. I think Terry, on our behalf, reached out to Open Space and the Conservation Commission to see if anyone from those groups, which sound like they would make sense to serve in that kind of a position. I Didn't hear of any response from that. Terry, has there been any?
Nothing yet.
Okay. I think this is something, unless one of you would like to jump up and say, hey, I'll do it. We should put off till next week and, I'm sorry, 2 weeks for our next meeting and see if the open space or the Concom respond with a volunteer.
I would agree.
So is that officially then tabled or just put off? Do we need a vote to do that or just?
I think we just postpone it till next time.
Done. Okay, public comment.
Well, Rick, before you go there, I just have one question. Terry, you forwarded us an email about the railroad study. Is that something that we need a vote on tonight for a letter of support?
Thought it was done.
Certainly, if the board would take a vote tonight, I would then log on and let them know that the Shelburne Select Board is in favor of the proposed rail trail.
It's not a rail
Did-
trail, it's the
Well-
East West Rail Study, yeah.
You're
The
right.
Northern Tier Rail.
You're right.
Or, yeah.
It's been a long
So,
day.
so
Sure
does that mean
has.
we've all replied to you, Terry? Is that what that means?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, so
But if
we
you
don't
take
need
a
to,
vote tonight, you won't need to each reply to me. I will just let them know that the board voted and is in favor of the proposal.
I move that we support that proposal.
I second.
Second and moved, Andrew
And
and Tricia.
Aye.
And
Thank you.
And I am I.
all right.
Speed. Another one off our plate. Thank you for grabbing that, Andrew. Man, I've seen some busy days. How Terry got through today, last Friday or Thursday, Friday, and today is beyond me. It's just mind-boggling. I spent hours and hours and hours trying to get up to speed on this just today alone, and it's still mind-boggling. So hats off to y'all for everything you do to put in. Now we're to public comment. And I see a hand. Do we have a unmuted mic?
I don't know, do I?
Yes. Welcome.
Remember,
Conflicts.
this is
Com-
for comment and we'll listen.
Yes. So the comment is that with the part of the grant from DOER for the Cowell Gym, I will also be pursuing additional incentives from Eversource through their municipal program. They may or may not have additional money for that. And then finally, going back to the whole discussion that occurred for a long time there about the weed issue on Old Greenfield Road. I think it's speculative that the fill actually brought in the seeds. The amount of knotweed already in this town is amazing. You just have to look along both sides of the river here in downtown area, in the village area, all the way around down the rest of the river, and it is spreading enormously. So I would just say, make sure that when you're deciding what to do, that you keep in mind the owners or the abutters' preferred treatment and not push them into a corner so that they at least have a chance to be able to make a informed decision. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment for us? Seeing none, we'll call for a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
I will gladly move to adjourn and just let you know, Tricia, if I was sounding a little short, I am still at work and I have 45 minutes to go home and I have not had lunch or dinner yet.
Oh my gosh, you
So
poor thing.
I'm a little grumpy
Okay.
now, but I move that we adjourn.
I second that, and thank you very much for that explanation, Andrew. And please go eat. You got to keep power bars in your drawer, man.
Been moved and seconded. We adjourn. Andrew
All right.
and Tricia.
Aye.
And I am I. Thank you very much for your time and stamina tonight.
Woo.
Sorry you got a long drive home ahead of you.
All right.
Yeah. Eat something good and then hit the road.
I know,
Okay, take
unfortunately,
care.
there's cafeteria closes here at 2, so